Ryan Smith come up too, please? I'd like to introduce our special guest. We have Evelyn Prophet, who is a retired American Airlines flight attendant, Tina LaGreca, who is an active American Airlines flight attendant, and her mom, Kathy LaGreca. And of course, you know Councilman Ryan Smith. Where are you? Okay. I'm just going to have to take this off.
Now you got it.
Many people put their own lives on the line to save others during and after 9/11 terrorist attacks, which resulted in thousands of deaths and unspeakable devastation. This morning, the four of us are about to highlight and demonstrate the courage and heroism of two flight attendants aboard American Airlines Flight 11 that took off at 7:59 a.m. from Boston, headed for Los Angeles. It was the first of 4 planes to be hijacked on that fateful morning after terrorists seized control at around 8:15 a.m. There was a light load of 81 passengers and a crew of 9 flight attendants and 2 pilots on board that morning. Betty Ong and Madeline Amy Sweeney were flight attendants working Flight 11 that day. The hijacking took place in business class and the very forward part of the aircraft, where the lead flight attendant and first-class galley flight attendants were working. Betty Ong had the presence of mind to use an onboard airphone in the back of the plane to call American Airlines reservations to relay as much information as she could about the hijacking. Betty was also transferred to other departments throughout the phone call. Only the first 4 minutes of her phone call were recorded. Amy Sweeney also made a phone call while seated in the last row of the plane to call her supervisor, who was back in Boston. The information the two were able to relay was instrumental in helping identify the hijackers, which in turn helped authorities understand the kind of threat the country was facing. Both stayed on their calls until the moment their planes were deliberately flown into the North Tower of the World Trade Center at 8:46 a.m. Evelyn Prophet, a 35-year retired American Airlines flight attendant, will be reading the words of Betty Ong. Tina LaGreca, a 32-year currently active American Airlines flight attendant, will be reading the words of Amy Sweeney that were recalled through notes taken by her supervisor, Michael Woodward. The words of Supervisor Michael Woodward this morning will be read by Mayor Francis. The words of Resolution Agent Winston Sadler will be read by Councilman Ryan Smith. And the words of the Operational Specialist Naida Gonzalez will be read by Kathy LaGreca. And as we begin, we remind you that we repeat these words with the utmost respect for all involved and for the lives lost that day, so that we may never forget. 8:18 a.m., Betty Ong calls reservation, and the call is answered by Vanessa Minter. The first thing Vanessa recalls Betty Ong saying is,
"I think we're being hijacked."
Since Minter sensed through something in Betty's voice that this wasn't a joke, she became nervous and could not find the emergency button to begin recording the conversation. She realized the seriousness of the situation and transferred the call to Winston Sadler, who took over while Minter remained on the line. After a bit of confusion, Betty finally repeated.
Okay, my name is Betty Ong. I am flight attendant number 3 on flight 11 from Boston to LA. The cockpit is not answering their phone. There's somebody stabbed in first class, and they cannot breathe in business class. Somebody's got maced or something. I think we're being hijacked.
Betty Ong continued to calmly relay more information from flight attendants now coming to the back of the plane to explain what had occurred up in the front.
On number 1, the purser got stabbed. A purser is stabbed. Nobody knows who stabbed who. And we cannot even get to business class right now because nobody can breathe. And number 5 was the galley flight attendant, and our pursers have been stabbed. And we cannot get into the cockpit. The door won't open. Hello?
Yeah, I'm taking down all of this information, and we're, of course, recording this.
At 8:21 a.m., Nida Gonzalez, an operator supervisor, joined the conversation, and Betty was asked again what flight numbers they were talking about and who she was speaking to. And Betty repeated,
It's flight 11 from Boston to LA. And number 1 has been stabbed. Number 5 has been stabbed in first class.
Betty can be heard asking the other flight attendants if any of them could get into the cockpit.
We cannot even get to the cockpit. We don't even know who's up there.
Well, if they were shrewd, they would keep the door closed, and
I'm sorry?
would they not maintain a sterile cockpit?
I think those guys are up there. 2 men are involved. They might have jammed their way up there or something. Nobody can call the cockpit. We cannot even get inside. Oh. Is anybody still there?
Yes, we're still here.
Okay, I'm staying on this line as well.
Have you guys called anyone else?
No, somebody's calling medical, but we cannot get a doctor.
At 8:25 a.m., Betty Ong mentioned that the plane was flying erratically and said that several times during the conversation. Nadia Gonzalez reassured Ong, saying,
Okay, sweetie. We've got security working on it right now.
a.m., Amy Sweeney attempted to make her own call and eventually got through to her supervisor, Michael Woodward, back in Boston.
Amy, sweetie, what's going on?
Listen to me very carefully. The airplane has been hijacked.
Where are you?
I'm sitting next to Betty. A man in first class had his throat slashed. 2 flight attendants have been stabbed. We can't contact the cockpit. Karen is on oxygen and isn't doing very well, but Bobby seems okay.
Tell me everything. What's happening? It's happening every second.
Betty and I are trying to relay as much information as we can to the ground.
Do you know the seat numbers?
10B, 9D, 9G, business class. They went into the cockpit with a bomb with yellow wires attached. They're Middle Eastern. One spoke very little English and one spoke excellent English.
How are the passengers?
Coach is calm. The passengers believe there's some type of medical emergency in the front of the plane.
At 8:45 a.m., both Betty and Amy were both relaying what ended up being the final moments of the flight. Nadia Gonzalez asks Betty,
What's going on, honey?
The plane is flying erratically again. There's something wrong. It's flying sideways.
About a minute later, Gonzalez asks Betty,
What's going on?
The plane is descending rapidly.
and at the same time on the other line, Amy Sweeney said to Michael Woodward,
Something's wrong. We're in a rapid descent. We're all over the place.
Amy, look out the window and tell me what you see.
I see water. I see buildings. We're flying low. We're flying very, very low. We're flying way too low.
Pray for us. This flight is going down.
We're praying for you, Betty.
Oh my God, we're flying way too low.
The flight is going down. Pray for us. Pray.
Amy, can you hear me? Amy,
Betty, talk to me. Are you there?
Amy, can you hear me? Amy.